Welcome to the fifth episode of 5P Podcast, the first international regenerative medicine and anti-aging podcast that will give you the tools to age with the greatest health, wellness, and appearance. It is directed by Professor Dr. Jaime Rodríguez Quintosa and Professor Dr. Debbie Vinsky. We are your hosts, Professor Carlos Galante and Sandra Sola.
We are at the headquarters of J-Rees Productions, Wave Smith Studios, the podcast accelerator that walks you through the steps to create a successful podcast from scratch. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast to learn more about this topic. And with us, we have the 5P Podcast ambassador, Professor Dr. Debbie Vinsky, the Queen of Anti-Aging Medicine and President of the World Council for Preventive, Regenerative and Anti-Aging Medicine, WOCPM. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Professor Carlos, and all our audience. And I also want to say hello to our director, Professor Dr. Jaime Rodriguez, the president of Efra International University and J-Rees Production. And today is a very special day. We have the famous doctor, Dr. Whalid Khairallah. He is a medical doctor specializing in internal medicine and endocrinology from American University of Beirut, as well as nutrition and health coaching from Institute for Integrative Nutrition, New York, with a special interest in autoimmune disorders and food allergies. The famous Dr. Whalid also trained in the GAPS nutritional methods for treating childhood disorders such as autism, ADHD, and learning disabilities. Dr. Whalid, we like to start the podcast, the 5P podcast, with the same question to all of our guests. Why did you decide to dedicate yourself to anti-aging medicine? Please, Dr. Whalid.
First, good day, Dr. Debbie, Sandra, Professor Galante. I'm very happy and grateful on your podcast. Your question is very interesting, the first question. In fact, my first target and interest was taking care of my loved ones in the family. You know, when you're growing, as a child and you see people around you, like your grandparents growing old, and you want to keep them younger, and when you see them getting sick and dependent on others, it feels very sad. So this whole story starts with my grandfather when he took his retirement, and he had told my grandmother, his wife, that they're gonna go on a trip, a world tour together to enjoy, And all of a sudden he had a stroke. And so overnight he became half a human being, in terms of dependence on others and not being able to take care of himself. And a second stroke a few months later took his life away. So it was very, very sad. And a few years later, my grandmother also suffered from a stroke, which led her to, hemiplegia. She's half paralyzed. And she couldn't also take care of her own, the daily task of herself, of showering, bathing, etc. And so we had to take care of her in the family. And it felt very sad to see this. So I put it as my target to take care of, first of my loved ones, my family, definitely of myself ultimately, because prevention starts early on in life. And ultimately to take care of all my patients. So this is what brought me to the field of anti-aging. So as an endocrinologist, I'm also concerned with anti-aging, and because we know that hormones play a big part in maintaining function and preventing aging of organs and of the body, of the heart, of the brain. So I took it to myself to learn more about this field, and I started going into trainings and attending conferences and congresses in the field. And it's a quite interesting field, to be honest. I mean, once you get into it, it's like a big dive into a whole world of, magic of information about the human body. So it's you feel you're again a student all the time, basically, and you keep on learning. It's a it's a world of discoveries that's in progress, in big progress.
Thank
Interesting. Thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Whalid.
During your lecture at the first International Health Conference in Bali in November 2023, you talked about biological measures of aging. What is the aim of measuring biological age?
So if you want to intervene to prevent aging or delay aging or even reverse aging, we need to have objective measures of whether our methods are working or not. So to be able to assess that, we have to first, have real values, objective values about what's happening in the body. And that's why a lot of researchers are looking into what we call biological measures of age measuring. And it's quite an interesting field because there are several methods under development, and some of them have already been studied and evidence-based so far. For example, it all started with telomere length measurement initially. And so we considered when telomeres are shortening, we're losing this capacity to keep their lengths. And this started as the first biological measure of age. So that's why it's important to have like a real assessment, to be able, when we intervene, to reassess later on in the process to see whether what we're doing is working or not. So if you'd like, we can go over the different measures. If you're interested in knowing, what's being developed now, we can go over that.
Yes, for sure. The next question is, how can we measure our biological age?
So the first, like I mentioned, was looking at the telomere length of telomeres. What I'll explain a bit, telomeres are we have chromosomes, and at the end of the chromosomes, we call them telomeres. These are parts of the DNA that when they get shorter with time, with age, there's disruption in cell regeneration and cell function ultimately, and maintenance of cell organ function. So it means normally we have an enzyme called telomerase that prevents these the chromosomes from shortening. And so with each cell cycle, let's say, and cell division, we can tend to get a bit of shortening, and this telomerase enzyme brings the length of the telomere back to its normal length normally. So if we lose this telomerase function with age, because it's also gets wear and tear, we tend to have little by little shorter and shorter telomere lengths, and ultimately we end up with aging of the cell and the organs. So that's why it was one of the first interesting measures, but was not enough, because some people are born with longer telomeres, in fact, and sometimes, so it's not really very accurate way, across the board. So other researchers start to look into other methods, and they looked into what we call methylation. So we call it now the Horvath biological clock, which was developed by Steve Horvath, who's in fact a German-American biostatistician who had also a dream of developing a biological clock, or biological measure of aging. And he looked into what we call methylation sites. So normally the cells, when they go into maturation, they methylate their DNA. And there are specific methylation sites where the methyl groups, are stuck to these sites. And the more methylation, the older the cell would be at these specific sites. So he found this way of looking at different sites, what we call methylation sites. And we call methyl age or methylation age for biological measures of aging. And other research, this is quite interesting as a measure, because it's it has very high accuracy. And in terms of predicting, for example, certain all-cause mortality in certain diseases. However, none of these two is alone on its own, it's perfect. So researchers have been looking into other methods as well, looking into RNA, what we call transcriptomics or transcriptomes, others looking into proteomics, the protein expression of the cells, and others looking into also metabolomics, the metabolism of the cells. We know that, for example, disturbances of metabolism in mitochondria and the cell metabolism can ultimately lead to cancer or to diabetes or to faster aging, heart disease. So my idea is combining all these measures ultimately, and possibly other measures as well, will be the best way to assess the real biological age of a person.
Great. And our biological, we are talking about biological age, but is the same as chronological age?
No. Chronological age is defined by the time we're born and the time of today. This is our chronological age. But you can take people like, for example, one patient of mine yesterday who's been following up with me for the past 12 years. He showed me a photo of his classmates. They had a class reunion. And one of his classmates, he's born basically the same week as he was born. And honestly, his classmate looked like his father, almost like his father. They're the same age, they're 55, both of them. So it's shocking to see that, because he's been working on himself for the past 12 years. So his biological age is much younger than his classmate. And he looks much younger than 55, and his classmate looks much older than 55. He looks like to be in the 60s, late 60s. And he looks to be in the 40s. So.
All right. So we were talking about how is it possible I can be 35, but my biological age might be 50. So how is it happening? No, what's that happen? Why is it happening?
Yeah, first, if you take care of your, body and cells properly, and the earlier you start, the better it is. Taking care of your diet, taking care of your exercise, moderate exercise, nothing in excess, definitely. Sleeping well, managing stress, having a positive attitude in life, and ultimately taking the proper kind of set of supplements, like based on testing, like if you do proper functional tests and laboratory testing, and you take care of basically all of your organs, because we're always as weak as our weakest link in life. So you have to take care of all of your organs. And if you follow all these principles together, ultimately you'll be aging much slower than other people who are not doing this. And ultimately you'll find that you're better, that you're younger than your biological age. This has been shown in several studies, and also there's a big, the Blueprint project by Brian Johnson he has shown that you can reverse aging. Within 2 years, he could reverse some measures like 21 years, some others, like by 5 years or 2 years. So, which is amazing. That you can do that with your body and your cells.
Yeah.
And now David Sinclair has shown in mice, at least with his group team at Harvard, that if you work on the proper epigenetic factors in the cell, you could modify gene expression and reverse aging as well. In mice, they could reverse aging.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we remind you that we are interviewing Dr. Whalid Khairallah. He's a medical doctor specialized in internal medicine, endocrinology, and anti-aging medicine. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast and follow Dr. Khairallah's work on his social media at Green Clinics Lebanon. Continuing with the interview, which signs indicate that we are aging?
The obvious signs we call phenotypic signs on the outside is definitely people, especially, all people, especially women, they look at wrinkles. Wrinkles are signs of aging. We're losing elasticity and in the skin and collagen. So these are typical signs of aging. Losing elasticity in the skin is definitely one, very obvious one. Graying of hair is another one. Hearing loss, vision loss, presbyopia. These are all like obvious markers. That people tell people you are aging. That you can, the body's telling the person you are aging. Um, Definitely, I mean, in some, like, of course, menopause in women, andropause in men, and all the symptoms, signs and symptoms that accompany these phases, they tell the persons that, that they are aging. Other factors, when they lose muscle mass, we call it sarcopenia, losing muscle mass and getting more fat, and a lot of people getting more fat, especially central fat like visceral fat, is another sign of aging, possible sign of aging. Osteoporosis on bone density measurements, this could be a sign, but this is not obvious to the outside until people have fractures. It becomes obvious to them. And losing height, this is another sign that's obvious about osteoporosis, and also like collapse of the vertebra. So then they lose in height, stature. So they start to feel like shorter and look shorter. This is also, and some people develop what we call kyphosis, like they bend forward. These are all obvious signs of aging. Typically, we consider that. So there's this typical image of the baby, that's the toddler, or that's crawling on the 4 feet, and then we become bipods on 2 feet, and then we have canes on 3 feet, using 3 feet as we age. So these are very obvious signs, to the observer. But as scientists and as doctors, we look into more molecular signs. We look into, like I mentioned before, telomere length, methylation, different size, changes in the metabolism of the cells. And if we can also do measurement of the different organ functions to see how they're functioning, if they're functioning properly or not, the heart muscle, the different muscles with dynamometers, for example, you can assess them, the muscle grip or strength. Looking at the eyesight, objectively with an ophthalmologist, proper hearing loss, we're looking with a hearing testing, all of these are possible. MRI of the brain to look for atrophy of the brain atrophy. So there are different measures for different organs. And we can do all of these assessments. It's interesting to be able, to do them and to see if we can reverse some of them. For example, with the Blueprint project, Brian Johnson could reverse white spots in the brain that were due to bad posture in the neck. So when he worked on his neck posture, he improved the blood circulation from the body to the brain and from the brain to the body. And this helped in clearing out some white spots that we frequently find on people when we do MRI for other reasons, to look for pathologies, and we end up seeing like these white spots. So this is all, it's good to know that they are reversible.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before there are different ways to measure our biological age, but every option was related to the DNA. Why? And do we need to do the 5 tests?
DNA is like, the blueprint for all the different programs in the cell that can be expressed. And with frequent cell divisions, of course, the cell tries to preserve the DNA as much as possible. It's like in a safe, kept in the safe in the nucleus of the cell. And this is used as the blueprint, like I mentioned, the real map of the body, what has to be done for each organ, each specific organ, each tissue. And ultimately, how the body expresses these programs is by taking copies from the DNA, what we call RNA. These are copies, different copies. So definitely if there's alteration in DNA, this would lead to dysfunction in the cellular functioning. So different cellular functions. If this could manifest at the level of the DNA itself, when we look at methylation, or at the level of RNA, when we look at the expression of DNA, so the copies that the cell takes from the DNA to send it outside, the nucleus, and to be able to create proteins or enzymes or different molecules based on these copies coming. So any defect or alteration in the RNA could also represent aging, like correlate with aging. And any defect in the expression of proteins could also be associated with defective, or faster aging. And like I previously mentioned, metabolic dysfunctions as well could be the resultant of all of these dysfunctions. And ultimately, they could express aging. But at the core of it, there is DNA.
And could you explain how and when genes are methylated?
Normally, we have methylation. Okay, when we're born, there's one cell that forms between the gametes of the parent, and this one cell is not specialized into anything, and it starts to first to multiply, and they're all cells that are initially not specialized. They all look alike, so they're basically not specialized yet because they did not shut down certain programs. So little by little, there's a process called methylation that shuts down certain programs in these cells, so that, for example, skin cell does not have to express programs that are found in heart cells or brain cells, liver cells. And the same for liver cell, doesn't have to express programs found in the brain or in the nervous system or in the skin. So this process is called methylation, whereby the cell shuts down certain programs so that it becomes more and more specialized. However, this process also can involve other parts of the DNA, and when it involves other parts in an intensive way, it means the cell is aging faster because it's going towards its end, like the end of its cycle. And by detecting these changes at specific sites in the DNA, we can know that these specific sites, they correlate with age, with biological age, with aging. So this was, studied by Horvath and his group, and they discovered that this is how, how you can detect the age of the cell by looking at these specific sites where there is methylation happening. And if there is too much methylation, it means the cell is gotten too old and it's approaching its death. So this is how it happens.
Okay, so what kind of connection exists between methylation and disease?
So just to keep it clear, I mean, not all methylation is bad. So it's methylation at these specific sites correlates with aging. A lot of methylation is healthy because, for example, at the level of the brain, methylation could help people be more like calmer and sleep better and be more focused. So people who are undermethylated in certain genes in the brain could be more hyperactive or have attention deficit, more anxious, have more anxiety, insomnia. I call them genes of hypervigilance, because they could be activated by not being well methylated. And these people tend to have more stress, high stress level throughout their life. So this could ultimately be detrimental. That's why not all methylation is bad. So some methylation is good because it keeps, it shuts down certain programs from being activated at the wrong time. And whenever they really need it, they could be demethylated or unmethylated, and ultimately we could, activate them whenever they're needed. But we don't need to be all the time anxious all day long, It's not very productive as a human. So not all methylation is bad. Methylation at specific sites could indicate aging of the cell and could correlate with disease. But sometimes undermethylation could also correlate with certain pathologies in the human being.
Okay.
At different sites. Okay.
Okay. How can we delay the velocity of the aging process?
To delay it, I think the best example now, that's why I like to revert back always to the Blueprint project, because it's a very interesting example that was put. I know for a lot of people it seems extreme to do all these measures that Brian Johnson has taken upon himself to prove, to make it a point that you can reverse aging. But we can learn a lot from his example that it can be done. First, that it can be done. This is amazing that this can be done. It's proof. There is living proof that can be done. Maybe people wouldn't be interested in doing everything he's doing, but at least if they do 70, 80% of what he's doing, they could, still get good effects on slowing down aging. So like I previously mentioned, healthy diet. It doesn't have to be vegan, though. I don't agree with just being vegan, so it doesn't have to be vegan diet. It just has to be made of good quality ingredients, very good quality ingredients, high quality, organic food as much as possible, and unprocessed food, going more into traditional ways of preparing food. This is very important. Drinking enough fluids every day, not to be dehydrated, and getting enough electrolytes through our fluids and through our food. We need minerals. Minerals is important. I think blue zones are also known for having very high levels of good minerals in the soil. So it's one of the contributing factors. A third factor is good sleep. Maintain good sleep, trying to go to bed before 11 if possible, and getting, like all the conditions met for a good sleep, and trying also to, to have, like, for example, avoiding exposure to light while sleeping. So getting into a very dark room, no noise, trying to shut down all EMF interference, voltage fields, chargers, EMF like Wi-Fi, microwave, from Wi-Fi, microwave antennas for cell phones, all of these. So try to isolate yourself from all these like interferences that could disrupt your sleep, to get good quality sleep and good production of melatonin, all the peptides that are produced by the pineal gland and other like important glands at night, so that we regenerate ourselves and we detoxify our body. Getting good exercise, no excess exercise, because we've seen there's a recent study, people who do have very high intensity exercise, more than 60 minutes a week, this could be detrimental to health and they lose the effect of the exercise. If they do more than 140 minutes a week, it could lead to higher mortality than sitting at home and watching TV. So it's important to do light to moderate exercise as much as we want, like maybe 30, 40 minutes a day, but light to moderate exercise. Walk a lot, and not to go excessive in weightlifting or even in running, like increasing your heart rate to very high levels. So all of this could be detrimental. So keeping a good way of exercising, maintaining all organs, a balanced way of exercising also, like not just weightlifting, but also mobility training, some cardiovascular, like I mentioned, light to moderate, and also doing agility, working on agility, on like making yourself, functional training is important because you're working, in a way that makes sense to the brain. So that because the brain, as long as the brain is maintained healthy, the healthier we are and the longer we live as well. And since we're talking about the brain, learning difficult things every day is very important. Like challenging your brain in learning, trying to keep it stimulated all the time, having a positive attitude in life, like exploration attitude, discovery attitude, and taking all challenges as challenges, not as problems. Everything that we face as real challenges that we're gonna, overcome, and try to find ways of overcoming them. So having fun in life, basically, and even turning everything we call stress into positive stress that makes us grow in life, not let us being, defeated or destroyed. All of these are very important as attitudes for healthier aging. Keeping very good social interactions. There are big studies showing that people with poor social interactions and that who live lonely life die earlier. Very big cohorts have shown this. And finally, taking care of yourself in a very precision medicine or functional medicine, looking at different deficiencies in the body and toxicities. So replenishing whatever you need in terms of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, hormones, peptides, but at the same time also detoxifying the body, because toxins can be impingement or obstacles to normal cellular function.
Dr. Whalid, I'm sorry, we are losing you again. The last 30 seconds might we not hear you properly. Yeah.
Yes.
Where did it stop? What was that?
I remember it's like you see the difficulty in life as a challenge and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful answer.
Yes.
So if you repeat, it's going to be very beautiful too.
Okay.
Yeah, like when you said it, like we said, that's for me too, like that.
Does the sound better
I think
now?
it's like
this? Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes.
good.
Yes. Really good.
So it's good to keep a positive attitude of life and try to look at what we normally see as problems, to look at them as challenges that will help us, that we try to overcome, and this will help us grow in life rather than being defeated or destroyed by them. And this outlook on life is very important as an attitude, and keeping always in mind that ultimately we have to have fun in life. Life is about having fun and playing. And even when we take it seriously, we shouldn't be taking it too seriously, because too seriously we can create havoc in our system, and we perceive it as permanent stress. So ultimately, enjoying life, trying to look at it, and having, like the observers look as well from the outside, not to be like always like immersed into the problems, and because there's always going to be problems, and it's about how we face them and how we take care of them and how we overcome them. So talking about this is very important, also to maintain a challenging, this challenge approach, and trying to always challenge our brains as well into learning new stuff all the time, like I mentioned, to keep your brain, stimulated all the time. In terms of other measures, is looking into what we call precision medicine or functional medicine. So looking at biological measures of aging, looking at doing tests to see what kind of vitamins are lacking, or minerals, or amino acids, or fatty acids are lacking to our body, and replenish all of these, plus replenish the hormones that are deficient, peptides, and ultimately also detoxify the body, because we know that toxins, we're exposed to a lot of toxins. Over the past 100 years, human beings have introduced into nature over 80,000 types of new chemicals, and less than 2% of these have been studied. So ultimately, we know that a lot of these molecules could be detrimental to normal cellular functioning and organ functions. So regular detoxification through fasting, or sauna, or other measures of detoxification, using also supplements for detoxification, could be of great help in getting rid of these toxins that could be also obstacles or impingement to normal cellular functioning. So by doing all of this, we put ourselves on the right track for, graceful aging, or possibly also reversing aging.
Thank you.
Wow, that was a very good answer. Yeah, really. I think we can move forward to the last question, because I think that the Blueprint project has been already answered. So, Professor Debbie, may you do the honor.
Yes, what an answer! I said we every day we learn something new, and thank you very much, Dr. Whalid. As the final question, yes, thank you. We have the final question. We'd like to ask, which methods do you use to reverse aging? Because you mentioned the last that not only slow aging process, but also reverse aging. So which methods do you use? Because you look younger too, compared to the last time.
Thank you. Everybody's telling me so. All my patients,
it's
lot of
true.
patients and friends also, they tell me the same. Just to tell you, I don't use any external method. External meaning like no Botox, no fillers. I mean, with all due respect to people who do it, but I mean, I don't. Personally, I don't. So everything I use is proper diet. I eat very healthy diet. Most of the times, doesn't mean I don't enjoy myself. I go out to restaurants, but I choose restaurants with very high quality ingredients. Like they use very proper ingredients, so high-end, cuisine, all of that. And I exercise moderately, like I mentioned. I take care of my posture. It's very important, because especially with medicine, we tend to develop bad posture because of sitting too long every day and studying a lot initially, in the study years. So we tend to have bad posture, and so working on the posture, working on the body with proper exercise, like I just mentioned, different balanced program, exercise program. And at the same time, I take a lot of supplements. I take care of my sleep, definitely. I track my sleep personally with an Oura ring, but I mean, there are other trackers. People use different wearables to track their sleep and activity. And they also, I use also a lot of, like I mentioned, a lot of good supplements, very good quality supplements. There are a lot of bad quality supplements on the market, unfortunately. So you have to be very careful in choosing the right quality of supplements when you take supplements, especially when you take them for a long time. And I use also, I work on optimizing my hormonal status all the time through, specific bioidentical hormones. And I use also peptides. And, plus, I also got into my center 10-pass ozone therapy, which has been proven to stimulate stem cells and also help with stimulating mitochondria and detoxification, the detox part of the immune system. So it helps the immune system detoxify better. It also upregulates the important three enzymes that are very important as to fight free radicals. Glutathione, production improves with glutathione synthase, catalase, and superoxide dismutase. They're all been shown to be enhanced when you do ozone therapy. So this is 10-pass ozone has been a game changer.
Wow, very
Ozone therapy
holistic.
also helps a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm using all of these techniques. I also try to breathe clean air as much as possible because I know I moved out of the city. This is important. I live in close to the countryside, not totally countryside, but close to the countryside. So in a relatively remote area with cleaner air, and I use air purifiers at home and the bedrooms, especially in the bedrooms in my office. So that's very important, the quality of the air we breathe, because this is very important, the quality of the air we breathe.
Yeah.
So I take care of all of these. And like I mentioned, the positive attitude about, challenges in life. We live very challenging times, over the past 2-3 years, and especially in my country, for example. But we also try to keep this positive attitude of, overcoming all the challenges as much as possible.
Okay, so before we
Thank you very much.
Before we say our goodbyes, I just have a question. You were talking about supplements. Which ones? We need to know.
We need to know what supplements are you taking.
Which supplement?
We need them.
Yeah, I tell you about the main ones. I take vitamin D3, K2, vitamin C, liposomal form. I take PQQ is a very important supplement. I take specific kind of zinc carnosine. I take zinc carnosine in this form, low dose, but every day. And I take N-acetylcysteine, to promote glutathione production in the body. I take supportive treatment for the adrenal glands. There are supplements to help my adrenals to be able to cope with all the high level of stress. I take P5P, which is a specific form of B6, because I need it personally. It doesn't mean everybody needs it, but I have specific gene mutations that need this to be taken. I take also diosmin because I sit very long time. It's good for to prevent varicose veins, but also helps neutralize certain mold toxins we're exposed to. So it protects the liver. Diosmin, hesperidin, which are citrus bioflavonoids. I take pycnogenol, which is a pine bark extract component, which has been shown to be good for the cardiovascular system, for the brain, for the skin. These are important ones. I take also chrycine, which is a passion flower extract, which has been shown to be good for the brain, also to prevent aromatization of testosterone into estrogens, because we know that estrogens could increase prostate, and lead to cancer of the prostate. So I take this as well. I take also good minerals, good quality minerals. So I have some days I take fulvic acid, other days I take quinton isotonic plasma, other days I take forms of magnesium that are highly absorbable for cardiovascular health. I take also this selenium, which is good for detoxification and good for the thyroid. Quite a few. I mean, there's a few more, but I mean that's the most important.
Thank you.
I take also CDP choline for the memory, which is I've seen a lot of people after COVID get affected by spike protein on the impact on the brain, and the memory areas of the brain. So I take CDP choline to reverse this, and it's been quite helpful to myself and a lot of patients, which is a natural nutrient. So I take all of these. Inositol, I take inositol as well. Digestive enzymes, all of these.
Quite a few.
Quite a few, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Whalid. And I'm sure you do measurement before, so all the audience also has to understand, like Dr. Whalid said, because you have a specific disorder of this, so you have to take this. So the
Exactly.
combination is better, and the follow-up before and after in what dose for us.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
don't
very
like to
much. I
generalize.
think,
Thank you. I was saying we
yeah,
don't
yeah,
like to
yeah.
generalize.
This is,
I don't like. Yeah, it's precision medicine. We have to go and test everyone gets tested and gets their own supplement
yes.
protocol.
Personalized
Yeah,
medicine,
personalized.
Dr. Wahid.
Exactly.
Yes. And thank you for your all the answer. I think it's very detailed, and all audience of 5P and all of us here also learn something new from Dr. Whalid. Thank you. I like to remind everybody today we have interviewed Dr. Whalid Khairallah, the very famous medical doctor specializing in internal medicine and endocrinology from American University of Beirut, as well as nutrition and health coaching from Institute for Integrative Nutrition, New York, with a special interest in autoimmune disorders and food allergies. Dr. Whalid is also trained in the GAPS GAPS nutritional methods for treating childhood disorders such as autism, ADHD, and learning disabilities. He is
Thank you.
currently also board of the World Council of Preventive Medicine with 75 members in Paris. Thank you again, Dr. Whalid. We will try to do all the tips from you today.
Thank you, Dr. Debbie. Thank you, Professor Galanti. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for listening and supporting this initiative. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at 5P Podcast. If you want to learn how to make a successful podcast, subscribe to at Wavesmith Studios on YouTube. See you next time, and remember, take care of yourself today to defy time tomorrow.